Willow Creek. A tranquil haven nestled amid sprawling suburbs, the epitome of peace and quiet. Its manicured lawns and pristine sidewalks whispered tales of a bygone era, an era where children chased butterflies and neighbors exchanged pleasantries over white picket fences. The air hung heavy with the scent of freshly cut grass and blooming hydrangeas. It was the kind of place where time seemed to slow down, where life unfolded at a leisurely pace, a place where nothing out of the ordinary ever happened, or so it seemed. Beneath the veneer of tranquility, a storm was brewing. A sinister secret lurked in the shadows of a seemingly ordinary home, a secret that would shatter the peace and send shockwaves through the community. The residents of Willow Creek, accustomed to the rhythm of their uneventful lives, would soon find themselves grappling with a chilling reality, a reality where evil had penetrated their peaceful haven, leaving an indelible mark on their collective psyche. Martha Ellis, a woman of routine, found immense joy in the simple things in life. Her mornings began with a cup of Earl Grey tea, enjoyed while listening to the cheerful chirping of birds outside her window. Afternoons were dedicated to tending her beloved rose garden, her weathered hands gently coaxing vibrant blooms from the earth. Evenings were spent curled up in her favorite armchair, a captivating novel in hand, with Oliver, her faithful companion, nestled contentedly in her lap. Oliver, a stately gray tabby with emerald green eyes, was more than just a pet to Martha. He was her confidant, her shadow, her furry guardian angel. Rescued from the local shelter years ago, Oliver had formed an unbreakable bond with Martha, his purrs a constant source of comfort and companionship in her quiet life. Their days were filled with a comfortable silence, a shared understanding that transcended words. Their bond was a testament to the unique connection between humans and animals, a silent language of love, loyalty, and unwavering support. Oliver, with his uncanny ability to sense Martha's moods, would often rub against her legs, purring softly, as if to chase away any lingering shadows of loneliness. In Oliver's presence, Martha found a sense of peace, a comforting reminder that she was not alone in the world, but this idyllic existence, this tranquil bubble of companionship, was about to be shattered. A darkness was creeping towards 12 Maple Drive, threatening to consume the warmth and light that had long filled its rooms. The peaceful cadence of their lives would soon be replaced by a cacophony of fear, suspicion, and the chilling realization that evil can lurk in the most unexpected of places. The first sign that something was amiss was subtle, a barely perceptible ripple in the calm waters of Willow Creek. Martha's usually meticulous garden began to show signs of neglect. The vibrant roses, once her pride and joy, drooped slightly, their petals tinged with brown. Her once immaculate porch, swept clean every morning, remained untouched, a scattering of leaves gathering in the corners. Days turned into a week, the silence from 12 Maple Drive growing more pronounced with each passing hour. Martha's absence from her usual routines, her absence from the heart of the community, began to stir a sense of unease among her neighbors. The aroma of freshly baked cookies, a familiar and comforting scent that usually wafted from her kitchen, was conspicuously absent. The rhythmic squeak of her porch swing, a soothing soundtrack to lazy afternoons, remained silent. The once familiar sights and sounds that had defined Martha's presence in Willow Creek were slowly fading, replaced by an unsettling quiet. It was as if a shadow had fallen over 12 Maple Drive, casting a pall over the entire neighborhood. The idyllic facade of peace and tranquility began to crumble, replaced by a growing sense of dread, a creeping suspicion that something was terribly wrong. And then there was Oliver. His demeanor, usually a reflection of Martha's own calm disposition, had taken a dramatic turn. Gone were the lazy stretches and contented purrs. Instead, an agitated restlessness pulsed from him. He paced the house, a frantic energy replacing his usual languid grace. His meows, once soft and melodious, became insistent, almost desperate, as if he were trying to convey a message that words couldn't express. Days turned into nights, the silence from 12 Maple Drive becoming deafening. Martha's absence, once a whisper of concern, grew into a chorus of worry among the residents of Willow Creek. The rhythm of their lives, once predictable and comforting, was now punctuated by the unsettling mystery of their missing neighbor. The mail, once collected daily, began to pile up at the foot of the mailbox, a silent testament to Martha's prolonged absence. Newspapers, delivered with a familiar thud each morning, lay scattered on the front lawn, their headlines faded by the sun, their stories unread. Denise Crawford, Martha's next-door neighbor and closest friend, felt a knot of anxiety tightening in her chest. She had known Martha for over a decade, their lives intertwined through countless cups of tea, shared gardening tips and whispered confidences. Martha was a creature of habit, her routine as predictable as the sunrise. Her sudden disappearance, shrouded in an unsettling silence, went against the very essence of who Martha was. Denise tried to rationalize the situation, to convince herself that there was a logical explanation for Martha's absence. Perhaps she had decided to visit her sister in the next town over, a spontaneous trip prompted by a sudden urge to escape the monotony of her routine. Or maybe she had fallen ill and was confined to her bed, too weak to reach out for help, but deep down, a nagging voice whispered that something was wrong. The silence from 12 Maple Drive was too profound, too out of character for Martha to ignore. It was a silence that spoke volumes, a silence that hinted at a darkness lurking beneath the surface of their peaceful neighborhood. While the neighborhood buzzed with speculation and growing concern, inside the quiet confines of 12 Maple Drive, Oliver, Martha's faithful feline companion, exhibited increasingly peculiar behavior. His once placid demeanor had transformed into a whirlwind of anxious energy. He paced relentlessly, his emerald eyes wide with an uncharacteristic fear, his soft meows escalating into mournful cries that echoed through the empty house. Oliver's usual routine, synchronized with Martha's every move, was now in disarray. He refused his favorite treats, his appetite seemingly vanished. He no longer curled up on Martha's favorite armchair, his purrs a comforting presence as she read. Instead, he stationed himself by the front door, his keen ears pricked, listening intently for the sound of Martha's familiar footsteps, the jingle of her keys, the sound of her voice calling his name. There was a palpable sense of urgency in Oliver's every move, a desperate plea for someone to understand his unspoken message. He would paw frantically at the closed bedroom door, his meows growing increasingly insistent, as if begging for entry. At times he would sit by the living room window, his gaze fixed on the street outside, watching with an unsettling intensity as neighbors passed by, their faces etched with concern. Oliver's strange behavior, once dismissed as a cat's typical aloofness, now seemed laden with meaning. He was like a compass, his every action pointing towards an unsettling truth, a mystery that lay hidden beneath the surface of their seemingly peaceful neighborhood. As days turned into a week, the absence of any word from Martha settled over Willow Creek like a suffocating fog. The initial shock had given way to a gnawing fear, a collective sense of dread that permeated the once peaceful community. The friendly waves and cheerful greetings that had been a hallmark of life in Willow Creek were replaced by furtive glances and hushed whispers. The idyllic facade of their small-town life had cracked, revealing a chilling undercurrent of vulnerability. The local police, accustomed to dealing with minor offenses like noise complaints and parking violations, were now faced with a baffling disappearance. They conducted routine checks, questioning neighbors, searching for any sign of Martha's whereabouts. But their efforts proved fruitless, yielding no clues, no leads, no trace of the missing woman. The absence of answers only served to fuel the growing sense of unease. Rumors like wildfire spread through the community. Some whispered of a family feud, long-held grudges bubbling to the surface. Others speculated about a stranger passing through town, their motives shrouded in darkness. Each theory, more outlandish than the last, only deepened the mystery surrounding Martha's disappearance. The once familiar streets of Willow Creek, once a source of comfort and security, now seemed ominous, filled with unseen shadows. The chirping of birds, once a cheerful melody, now sounded like a mournful dirge. The idyllic bubble of their peaceful existence had burst, leaving behind a residue of fear and uncertainty. Denise Crawford, her concern for Martha growing with each passing day, found herself drawn to the quiet house next door. She would stand on her porch, her gaze fixed on Martha's front door, her mind awhirl with unanswered questions. She had called Martha's phone countless times, the only response a hollow ringing that echoed her growing fear. The sight of Oliver, his once vibrant spirit now dulled with worry, only amplified Denise's concern. She would often see him perched on the windowsill, his emerald eyes gazing out at the street, his mournful meows tugging at her heartstrings. There was an urgency in his demeanor, a silent plea for help that she couldn't ignore. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon casting long shadows across Willow Creek, Denise decided she could no longer stand idly by. The silence from 12 Maple Drive had become unbearable, the lack of answers deafening. She had a gut feeling that something was terribly wrong, a feeling that transcended logic and reason. With a deep breath and a heart heavy with trepidation, Denise crossed the yard, her footsteps echoing in the stillness of the evening. She climbed the steps to Martha's porch, her hand trembling slightly as she reached for the doorbell. The sound, a shrill, unfamiliar chime, seemed to hang in the air, amplifying the silence that greeted her. The deafening silence that met Denise's repeated rings only served to solidify the knot of dread twisting in her stomach. Martha always without fail answered her door. This unsettling deviation from routine, coupled with the home's eerie stillness, pushed Denise to act. She hurried back home and dialed 911, her voice trembling as she relayed her concerns to the dispatcher. Within minutes, the flashing lights of a patrol car sliced through the growing darkness of Willow Creek, shattering the neighborhood's uneasy quiet. Officer Ben Reynolds, a young man with kind eyes and a reassuring presence, approached Martha's home, his hand hovering above the doorknob. He knocked firmly, announcing his presence. But the only response was the unsettling echo of silence. Officer Reynolds, sensing something amiss, decided to investigate further. With Denise's permission, he carefully tested the doorknob, surprised to find it unlocked. He stepped inside, his senses on high alert, the scent of stale air and something faintly metallic assaulting his nostrils. "Hello, Mrs. Ellis? It's Officer Reynolds," he called out, his voice echoing through the unnervingly quiet house. Denise stood anxiously on the porch, her gaze darting from Officer Reynolds's back to the overgrown rose bushes lining the porch railing. Each rustle of leaves, each chirp of a cricket sounded amplified in the stillness, turning her apprehension into a symphony of fear. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong, a feeling that intensified with each passing second. As Officer Reynolds moved cautiously through the house, his footsteps echoing through the unnerving silence, he noticed signs of a life interrupted. Dishes sat unwashed in the sink, a half-finished cup of tea rested on the coffee table, and a book lay open, as if abandoned mid-sentence. It was as if time had simply stopped for Martha Ellis, the mundane details of her day frozen in place. And then he saw him. Oliver, usually a whirlwind of affectionate greetings, sat crouched beneath the dining room table, his emerald eyes narrowed, his body tense, a low growl rumbling in his chest. There was a wildness in his gaze that Officer Reynolds had never witnessed in a house cat, an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. As Officer Reynolds approached, attempting to coax the frightened feline out from his hiding spot, Oliver's behavior turned from wary to frantic. He hissed, arched his back, and swiped at the officer's outstretched hand, a clear warning to stay away. Then with a determined meow, he darted from beneath the table and ran to a specific spot in the living room, directly in front of the fireplace. Oliver began to paw at the floorboards, his meows growing increasingly insistent, as if trying to draw attention to something hidden beneath the wood. He continued this agitated dance of desperation, his every move conveying an urgency that Officer Reynolds couldn't ignore. It was as if the cat, unable to speak human language, was resorting to desperate measures to be heard. Intrigued and more than a little unnerved by Oliver's insistent behavior, Officer Reynolds crouched down, examining the area where the cat had focused his attention. The floorboards appeared undisturbed, their aged wood polished to a shine from years of Martha's meticulous care. But there was something about Oliver's unwavering focus, the raw desperation in his meows, that told Officer Reynolds this was no ordinary feline anxiety. He radioed for backup, requesting the presence of a detective and a forensics team. As he waited, his gaze was drawn back to Oliver, who had not moved from his spot. The cat sat beside the officer, his body still rigid, his emerald eyes fixed on the floorboards, a silent sentinel guarding a secret only he seemed privy to. The arrival of Detective Sarah Evans, a seasoned investigator known for her sharp instincts, marked a turning point in the investigation. After listening to Officer Reynolds' account of Oliver's strange behavior, Detective Evans, rather than dismissing it as animalistic quirk, decided to trust her gut and the cat's insistent cues. With a mixture of apprehension and grim determination, Detective Evans made the call. They would tear up the floorboards. The rhythmic clang of the crowbar prying up the floorboards echoed through the quiet house, each sound a hammer blow to the heart of Willow Creek's innocence. Yet, as the floorboards began to give way, revealing a dark earthen cavity beneath, a collective gasp rippled through the small group of first responders gathered in the living room. The air, thick with the smell of damp earth and something infinitely more sinister, carried with it a chilling truth. The peaceful facade of 12 Maple Drive, of Willow Creek itself, had been irrevocably shattered. The discovery of Martha Ellis's body, concealed beneath her own living room floor, sent shockwaves through the community. The news spread like wildfire, igniting a firestorm of grief, fear, and disbelief. What had begun as a missing persons case, a whisper of concern in a quiet neighborhood, had morphed into something far more sinister, a murder investigation. The quaint serenity of Willow Creek vanished overnight, replaced by the chilling specter of murder. The investigation, spearheaded by the determined detective Sarah Evans, began with a meticulous sweep of the crime scene. Every inch of Martha's home, once a sanctuary of warmth and familiar comfort, was now scrutinized under the harsh glare of forensic lights. Fingerprints were dusted, fibers collected, and luminol sprayed, revealing the grim choreography of a struggle. As Detective Evans delved deeper, she found herself staring into a tangled web of relationships, secrets, and half-truths. Interviews with neighbors painted a picture of a woman who, while beloved by many, also maintained a guarded private life. There were whispers of a strained relationship with her late husband's family, hushed rumors of financial troubles cleverly concealed behind a facade of middle-class respectability. The truth, she knew, lay hidden somewhere within this tangled web, waiting to be untangled, one painstaking detail at a time. The initial shock of Martha's death slowly gave way to a wave of suspicion that washed over Willow Creek. At the epicenter of this maelstrom of suspicion stood Tyler Ellis, Martha's grandson and sole heir. Neighbors recalled seeing him at Martha's house with increasing frequency in the weeks leading up to her disappearance, usually engaged in heated arguments. Tyler's alibi for the night of Martha's death proved flimsy at best, riddled with inconsistencies. He claimed to have been out of town, visiting friends, yet phone records placed him in the vicinity of his grandmother's home around the time of her estimated time of death. When confronted with this discrepancy, Tyler stumbled over his words, his explanations growing increasingly convoluted. The evidence, though circumstantial, pointed towards a motive as old as time greed. As Detective Evans delved deeper into Tyler Ellis's background, a disturbing pattern began to emerge. Interviews with family members and friends revealed a long history of financial dependence, a trail of unpaid debts and broken promises. One cousin recounted how Tyler had once convinced their aging aunt to mortgage her home, promising to invest the money in a surefire business venture that turned out to be nothing more than a cruel fabrication. His charm, his ability to disarm with a smile, had long masked a calculating nature, a willingness to go to great lengths to get what he wanted. And now, with Martha Ellis gone, the question that haunted Detective Evans was not if Tyler was capable of harming his own grandmother, but what lengths he had gone to in order to inherit her modest estate. While suspicion swirled around Tyler Ellis, Detective Evans knew that suspicion alone wouldn't be enough to secure a conviction. She needed concrete evidence, a smoking gun that would link him definitively to the crime scene. The digital age, while often a double-edged sword, proved to be Tyler's undoing. His digital footprint, a trail of carelessly discarded data, painted a damning picture of his desperation. Credit card statements revealed a series of large cash withdrawals made in the weeks leading up to Martha's death. Cell tower data placed Tyler's phone within a few blocks of his grandmother's house on the night she was last seen alive. And then there were the internet searches, a chilling glimpse into the mind of a desperate man. The weight of the evidence, circumstantial though it may be, began to mount against Tyler Ellis, each digital breadcrumb leading back to him. The interrogation room was a study in contrasts. Detective Evans, her posture betraying years of experience reading the subtlest of human cues, sat across from Tyler Ellis, her gaze unwavering. Gone was the facade of grief that Tyler had so carefully constructed in the days following his grandmother's death. The weight of the mounting evidence had taken its toll. His face, once boyishly handsome, now appeared pale and drawn, his eyes red-rimmed and bloodshot. His hands, once used to charm and disarm, now trembled slightly, betraying an inner turmoil. Detective Evans, a master of reading the silent language of the body, recognized these telltale signs of a man on the verge of breaking. Detective Evans began her interrogation with a disarming calmness, her voice a study in controlled empathy as she laid out the facts of the case. She spoke of the inconsistencies in Tyler's alibi, the damning cell phone records that placed him at the scene of the crime, the chilling internet searches. With each piece of evidence presented, the walls of Tyler's carefully constructed facade crumbled a little further. The confident, almost arrogant demeanor he had displayed during their initial interviews evaporated, replaced by a palpable fear. The silence in the interrogation room, punctuated only by the rhythmic tapping of Detective Evans's pen against the table, became almost unbearable. As Detective Evans continued, her words measured and deliberate, she could see the fight draining out of Tyler. His shoulders slumped, his gaze falling to his hands, now twisted together in his lap. The weight of the evidence, the relentless pressure of Detective Evans's questioning, and the suffocating silence of the interrogation room finally chipped away at Tyler's carefully constructed defenses. With a shuddering breath, a broken whisper that seemed to hang in the air long after the words had been spoken, Tyler confessed. His confession, delivered in a torrent of tears and fragmented sentences, was a chilling account of a life spiraling out of control. He spoke of his mounting debts, his failed attempts to secure a loan, his growing resentment towards his grandmother. He described the argument, the final, desperate plea for money that had been met with Martha's firm refusal. The confession, devoid of any attempt at justification, was a raw, unfiltered glimpse into the darkest recesses of the human psyche. In the aftermath of Tyler's confession, a palpable sense of relief settled over the Willow Creek Police Department. The mystery that had gripped their small town had been solved. Justice for Martha Ellis, the beloved matriarch whose life had been brutally cut short, seemed assured. Yet, as Detective Evans reviewed the details of the case, a nagging question lingered in her mind. Did Tyler Ellis truly feel remorse for his actions, or was his confession merely a calculated move to mitigate his punishment? The jury, faced with the overwhelming evidence and Tyler's own confession, found him guilty of second-degree murder. The idyllic facade of their peaceful community had been irrevocably shattered, leaving behind a residue of grief, a reminder that evil could lurk in the most unexpected of places. The trial of Tyler Ellis for the murder of his grandmother, Martha Ellis, gripped the small town of Willow Creek like a vice. The courtroom, usually a place of sterile procedure and measured pronouncements, thrummed with a palpable tension, a reflection of the collective grief and simmering anger that had settled over the community. The prosecution, led by the formidable District Attorney Janet Howard, presented a methodical and damning case, meticulously laying out the web of circumstantial evidence that pointed towards Tyler's guilt. Their narrative centered on a motive as old as time greed. They painted a picture of a young man drowning in debt, his life a series of poor choices and missed opportunities, who saw his grandmother's modest inheritance as his only escape route. They presented a trail of financial transactions, each one a desperate attempt to stave off creditors, culminating in a series of large cash withdrawals made in the days leading up to Martha's death. the prosecution meticulously dismantled Tyler's alibi, highlighting the inconsistencies in his story, the damning cell phone records that contradicted his claims of being out of town, and the chilling internet searches that revealed a mind consumed with concealing a terrible act. They called upon neighbors who testified to the strained relationship between Tyler and Martha, the frequent arguments that had shattered the quietude of their once peaceful cul-de-sac. Each witness, each piece of evidence presented, tightened the noose of guilt around Tyler, casting a long shadow over his carefully constructed facade of innocence. The prosecution, through their meticulous presentation, left no room for doubt. Tyler Ellis, driven by greed and desperation, had brutally murdered the one person who had always been there for him, leaving her body to rot beneath the floorboards of her own home. As the trial progressed, the once tight-knit community of Willow Creek found itself fractured, the lines between sympathy and condemnation blurring with each passing day. The courtroom became a microcosm of this division, the gallery packed with a mix of Martha's friends and neighbors, their faces etched with a mix of grief, anger, and a disquieting uncertainty. On one side of the aisle sat those who had known Martha Ellis as a pillar of the community, a kind and generous soul who had always opened her door and her heart to those in need. Their grief was palpable, their tears a testament to the profound loss they felt, their presence a silent tribute to the woman whose life had been so tragically cut short. Across the aisle sat a smaller group, their faces etched with a mixture of disbelief and reluctant sympathy. These were Tyler's former classmates, his childhood friends, those who had known him before the weight of his poor choices had transformed him into the man who now stood accused of murder. They struggled to reconcile the boy they remembered, the one who had once possessed so much promise, with the monster he was now accused of being. The courtroom became a battleground for public opinion, a stage where the complexities of human nature, the fine line between love and hate, innocence and guilt, played out in real time. The trial of Tyler Ellis had become more than just a legal proceeding. It had become a referendum on the soul of Willow Creek, a stark reminder that even in the most idyllic of communities, darkness could lurk in the most unexpected of places. The defense, helmed by the seasoned and shrewd attorney Robert Miller, faced an uphill battle. The prosecution's case, built on a mountain of circumstantial evidence and fueled by the community's thirst for justice, loomed large. Miller, known for his ability to sway juries with a combination of charisma and carefully crafted narratives, opted for a risky strategy, one that hinged on generating sympathy for his client, on painting a picture of a young man driven to a single, terrible act by a perfect storm of desperation and despair. They acknowledged Tyler's financial woes, his history of poor choices, but argued that these were the actions of a desperate young man, not a cold-blooded killer. They presented Tyler as a victim of his own circumstances, a product of a broken home, a young man who had made mistakes, but who was ultimately redeemable. They painted Martha, not as a helpless victim, but as a controlling matriarch, a woman who had enabled Tyler's dependence, who had held the purse strings tight, wielding her financial power to manipulate and control him. The defense called upon character witnesses, childhood friends and former teachers, who testified to Tyler's inherent goodness, his potential for redemption. They spoke of his artistic talents, his kind heart, his struggles with a learning disability that had made it difficult for him to succeed academically. Their testimonies, while heartfelt, did little to chip away at the mountain of evidence against him. The defense's strategy, while risky, was their only hope. They needed to humanize Tyler, to make the jury see him not as a monster, but as a flawed young man who had made a terrible, irreversible mistake. The question was, in the face of such damning evidence, would sympathy be enough to sway the jury towards a verdict of anything less than guilty? After weeks of testimony, of evidence presented and challenged, of emotional pleas and legal maneuvering, the fate of Tyler Ellis rested in the hands of the jury. The courtroom, silent save for the hum of the air conditioning and the rustle of anticipation, held its breath as the 12 men and women filed back into the jury box, their faces etched with the weight of their decision. The verdict, delivered after 3 days of deliberation, echoed through the courtroom, a single word heavy with the weight of justice, of a life tragically lost and another irrevocably altered: guilty. The prosecution's case, meticulous and unrelenting, had proven insurmountable. The defense's attempts to generate sympathy, to paint Tyler as a victim of circumstance, had fallen short. A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom as the verdict was read, a wave of emotion washing over the faces of those present. For Martha's friends and neighbors, the verdict brought a sense of relief, a confirmation that the legal system had worked, that Tyler would be held accountable for his actions. Their tears, once a testament to their grief, now carried a hint of closure, of a chapter finally closed. For Tyler's supporters, the verdict brought a crushing finality. Their faces, etched with a mix of disbelief and despair, reflected the depth of their disappointment, their struggle to reconcile the young man they thought they knew with the monster he had been found to be. The judge, her voice firm and unwavering, sentenced Tyler Ellis to 25 years to life in prison, a sentence that ensured he would spend his best years behind bars, haunted by the consequences of his actions. As Tyler was led away in handcuffs, his face pale and devoid of emotion, a heavy silence descended upon the courtroom. The trial of Tyler Ellis had reached its conclusion, but the echoes of that fateful night in Willow Creek, the night Martha Ellis lost her life at the hands of her own grandson, would continue to reverberate through the community for years to come. Justice had been served, but true closure, the healing of the wounds inflicted by such a senseless act of violence, would prove to be a far more elusive pursuit. Oliver's legacy, more than just a witness. News of Oliver's pivotal role in the investigation spread like wildfire, transcending the borders of Willow Creek to capture the hearts and imaginations of people across the nation. The quiet, unassuming tabby cat, once content to live his days within the confines of 12 Maple Drive, became an overnight sensation. His name synonymous with loyalty, intuition, and the unwavering bond between humans and their animal companions. Dubbed Detective Whiskers by the media, Oliver's story struck a chord with animal lovers and true crime enthusiasts alike. His persistent meows, his unwavering focus on the spot where Martha's body lay concealed, served as a poignant reminder that animals often possess a depth of perception and attunement to their surroundings that eludes human understanding. Animal behaviorists weighed in, offering their expert opinions on Oliver's extraordinary actions. Some attributed his behavior to a heightened sense of smell, the ability to detect the faintest whiff of decomposition emanating from beneath the floorboards. Others spoke of a profound emotional connection between Oliver and Martha, a psychic link that transcended the physical realm, allowing him to sense her presence even in death. Whatever the explanation, Oliver's legacy extended far beyond the courtroom walls. His story became a beacon of hope, a testament to the extraordinary ways in which animals enrich our lives, offering not only companionship but a unique window into the mysteries of the natural world. The trial of Tyler Ellis concluded, the gavel fell, and a semblance of justice was served. Yet the idyllic facade of Willow Creek, the illusion of a community untouched by the darker currents of human nature, had been irrevocably shattered. The murder of Martha Ellis, a woman who had embodied the very heart and soul of their small town, left an unfillable void, a chilling reminder that evil could lurk even in the most familiar of places. The once familiar rhythms of life in Willow Creek resumed, children returned to their games, neighbors exchanged greetings over freshly mowed lawns, but a subtle shift had occurred. The carefree innocence that had once defined their community had given way to a newfound vigilance, a heightened awareness of the fragility of peace, the thin veil that separated their tranquil existence from the chaos that lay just beneath the surface. The case of Martha Ellis, the quiet widow whose murder had exposed the dark underbelly of their idyllic town, continued to be a topic of hushed conversations, a ghost story whispered around campfires, a cautionary tale passed down through generations. The memory of Martha, her kindness, her infectious laughter lingered, a bittersweet reminder of the innocence they had lost. And what of Oliver, the unlikely hero whose actions had brought a murderer to justice? He remained a local legend, a symbol of loyalty and unwavering love, his story a testament to the extraordinary bond between humans and animals. Oliver's unwavering focus on the spot where Martha's body was concealed ignited a wave of speculation. not only about the keen instincts of animals, but also about the unseen bonds that might connect us beyond the veil of death. Could Oliver, with his heightened senses and deep connection to his owner, have sensed her presence even in her absence? The question lingered in the minds of many, fueling discussions about the afterlife, the possibility of animal spirits, and the enduring power of love that might transcend the boundaries of life and death. Stories surfaced from Willow Creek and beyond, tales of pets exhibiting unusual behaviors after the passing of their owners, as if drawn by an invisible thread of loyalty and love. While science might offer rational explanations for such occurrences, attributing them to scent, routine, or a primal instinct to protect familiar territory, the possibility of a deeper connection, an unseen bond that death could not sever, continued to captivate the human imagination. Oliver's story became intertwined with these age-old questions, his legacy extending beyond the realm of the tangible, into the realm of the spiritual and the unknown. His story served as a poignant reminder that the human-animal bond runs deeper than we often acknowledge, a testament to the profound ways in which animals enrich our lives, offering not only companionship but a window into mysteries that may forever elude human understanding. The murder of Martha Ellis, a senseless act of violence that shattered the tranquility of Willow Creek, served as a stark reminder that evil can touch even the most idyllic of communities. Yet, amidst the grief, the anger, and the lingering sense of loss, there emerged a glimmer of hope, a testament to the enduring power of truth and the unwavering pursuit of justice. The case, cracked open not by seasoned detectives or forensic breakthroughs, but by the persistent meows of a grieving cat, highlighted the unexpected ways in which justice can be served. Oliver, the unassuming tabby cat, became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, truth has a way of revealing itself, often through the most unexpected of messengers. The story of Martha Ellis and her devoted cat, Oliver, resonated far beyond the borders of Willow Creek, touching the hearts of people across the nation and beyond. It served as a poignant reminder of the enduring bond between humans and animals, the importance of listening to the whispers of our hearts, and the unwavering belief that even in the face of unimaginable loss, justice, in its own time and in its own way, has a way of finding its way home. While we may never know exactly what Oliver sensed, scent, emotion, or instinct, what's clear is this: sometimes justice doesn't come from a fingerprint, but from a paw print. Thank you for watching Crime Files Unlock. Like, share, and subscribe for more real cases where truth is stranger than fiction.